Back now to that very public spat between President Trump and Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. The two argued in front of reporters during a tour of the Federal Reserve yesterday. This comes after weeks of the president urging Powell to lower interest rates, a sentiment House Speaker Mike Johnson is backing.
I do believe a lot of economists will say when the economy is hot, when it's running, and ours is, and we're ramping up lots of great developments, that is not a time for you to reduce interest rates. But I think desperate times call for desperate measures.
Let's bring in CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. Hey.
Hey.
So let's talk the news that actually matters. What is the Federal Reserve planning on doing next week? They're meeting next week.
So the market right now is pricing in a 97% chance that they're going to leave interest rates
97%.
steady.
So basically,
it's an almost certainty. Exactly. And it actually increased in terms of certainty after that meeting.
That shouldn't be funny, but there's somehow like that kind of makes sense to me. Okay.
I was like looking at the before and after. That being said, there is a 60% chance that the market is pricing in that they cut interest rates at the September meeting. Okay. And that's really where people have been expecting that the Fed is playing the wait and see game. They want to see how tariffs flow through to the inflation rate for another couple of months, and that September would be the moment. So basically next week, it's likely going to be no change.
Right. So that meeting between Powell and the president yesterday where, you know, the Fed chair said the numbers you're looking at are incorrect. That seems to, I guess, what the market is saying, yeah, look, this guy is able to stand up to the president of the United States. It doesn't matter if it's a Democratic president or a Republican one. His job is apolitical. And if you're coming to him with numbers that aren't accurate, he's going to say so and not be concerned so much about what the cameras are doing or what reporters are doing. And clearly the market, in thinking about these interest rate hikes or cuts over the next couple of years, says he's going to do what he thinks is right, not what the president wants him to do.
Well, first and foremost, I saw that exchange yesterday, and my immediate thought was, I can't wait to talk to Vlad about this tomorrow, because we've been talking about how Powell can be pretty much stoic. He keeps everything close to the belt, and I think you really saw that play out yesterday. The numbers, there was that moment where the president essentially took out the receipts, right? And he said, well, this has cost $3.1 or $2 billion. And Powell looked at it and said, well, no, actually, you're counting in this building that was built that isn't part of the renovation. And so it really seemed like the discrepancy is what the president was actually including in that cost or the cost of construction. He was essentially trying to say, well, actually, you're close to $1 billion over budget.
Right.
But in that moment, you know, Powell stayed cool. It's really what we've known Powell for in the press conference and everything. And the markets didn't really react any which way. And I think that was, everyone was really wondering what this meeting was going to do to the markets. And no one really.
Yeah, to be fair, we don't know what numbers the president was showing because we didn't see. So he may have been right, but I think it's this, you know, what it showed, I think, to people who don't follow this regularly is that here's a guy who's not afraid to stand in his convictions and say something to the most powerful man in the world, essentially, and that's what Powell did. So well, it'll be interesting to see. 97% chance doesn't mean 100%, Kelly.
It's true.
So you never know.
There's always a wild card.
All right. The president also spoke on the prospect of a deal with the European Union. I want to play a little bit of that.
I would say that we have a 50-50 chance, maybe less than that, but a 50-50 chance of making a deal with the EU. And it'll be a deal where they have to buy down their tariffs because they're right now at 30%.
So what's the latest on those trade deals? I know that it's also really interesting that South Korea is also like scrambling after they saw that deal that Japan made with the United States to try to get a deal too. So some of this stuff seems to be working.
It does. It does look like we are getting access, the U.S., I mean, to markets to sell, especially agricultural products into a number of these different countries. What I thought was really interesting about what he said there was maybe the EU has to buy down their tariffs. And that sort of raised a flag in my mind because I go back to the Japan deal that just happened where they lowered the tariff rate that was threatened from 25% to 15%. But it also requires Japan to invest $550 billion in the U.S.
Right.
And so I'm wondering maybe if that is what he's looking the EU to do when he says buy down that tariff rate. Regardless, though, the baseline tariff has been at 10% while everything is on hold. All of these deals are higher than that. And so it does feel like 15% may actually be the floor, not 10%.
Wow. All right. We'll be watching. Kelly O'Grady, good to have you here. Thank you.